Am I the a-hole for refusing to give my ex-stepmom more money from my late father's estate and cutting her off after she and my stepsister turned his death into a cash grab and a public takedown? This is complicated, painful, and something I've been sitting with for a long time. I've questioned myself endlessly, and now I need an outside perspective. I, 27F, lost my dad to cancer in 2022. It happened fast, too fast. Our relationship wasn't perfect. We had our ups and downs, but I was still his only biological child, and despite everything, we had a connection that ran deep. Before he passed, he finalized his will. I was named the sole beneficiary, except for one portion. He gave a $20,000 lump sum to his ex-wife, my former stepmom, Renee. That was his decision, and I respected it. I didn't challenge it, even though their divorce had been finalized almost 10 years before he died. I figured maybe it was guilt, sentimentality, or his way of tying up loose ends. And that should have been the end of it. But it wasn't. The day after he died, literally the next morning, I woke up to chaos. Renee's daughter, my former stepsister, I'll call her Tara, had posted a long, graphic, and emotionally loaded message on Facebook accusing my father of sexually abusing her when she was younger. It was devastating to read. Shocking. Not because I had any prior knowledge of something like that, but because of the timing, the very public platform, and the sheer intensity of it. It didn't feel like disclosure. It felt like a weapon. I was blindsided. For context, the alleged abuse, according to them, happened years before I was born, when my dad and Renee were still together. And yes, despite allegedly knowing what he was doing to her daughter, Renee stayed with my father. In fact, she stayed with him after he cheated on her with my mom and after I was born. And despite all of that, she was a pretty decent stepmom to me throughout my early years. That's the part that's so hard to wrap my head around. I didn't respond publicly to Tara's post. It wasn't my story to comment on, and I had no idea what was true, exaggerated, or completely false. I didn't know what to believe, but I knew the way it was all presented felt off. Especially with the way they positioned themselves as long-suffering victims while also scrambling behind the scenes for more inheritance money. Fast forward to now, 2.5 years later. I've just had a baby. I'm 2 months postpartum, navigating the raw, overwhelming world of new motherhood, when out of the blue, Renee contacts me. Not to congratulate me, not to offer support or kindness, but to ask for more money. She said, verbatim, that she deserved a bigger portion of my dad's estate after everything we went through. She framed her message as if she was being generous by not attacking me publicly, saying that if I gave her more money, she would leave me alone. Like it was some kind of favor, like she was doing me a kindness by not taking legal action yet. I was stunned. This woman had already received $20,000 from my dad's estate, which was a gesture he chose to make despite their being divorced for nearly a decade. She had her opportunity to make financial claims during their divorce. Why wait until after he was dead and buried, and I was grieving and recovering from childbirth, to circle back for more? I responded as calmly as I could. I told her that while I was sorry for whatever trauma she and Tara had endured, I wasn't responsible for fixing it with money, especially not after what she already received. I reminded her that she and my father had been estranged for years before his death. That's when things turned ugly. She exploded. She sent me a long, hate-filled message accusing me of siding with a predator, denying Tara's pain, and being selfish and greedy. She said I was just like my mother, who she claimed trapped my dad by getting pregnant with me. For the record, my parents' relationship was messy, but trapped? Really? She accused me of being a spoiled brat who never worked a day in her life, and even had the audacity to call me the devil's spawn. She claimed she and my dad weren't really divorced, insinuating that she had been more of a wife to him than anyone else, and therefore entitled to his estate. She ended the message by hinting she had legal advice and might sue me if I didn't comply. At that point, it became crystal clear. This wasn't about grief. This wasn't about trauma or healing. This was about money. Period. It was about her trying to manipulate, threaten, and guilt-trip me into giving her something she was never owed. What hurt the most wasn't just the attempt to bleed me dry financially, it was how transactional it all was. Renee used to be a maternal figure to me. I trusted her. I loved her at one point. And now here she was, essentially blackmailing me for money in exchange for silence. It was disgusting. I told her I was done. I told her she'd already gotten more than she was owed, that I wouldn't be intimidated by threats of lawsuits, and that I wanted no further contact. I blocked her. But the drama didn't end there. A week later, Tara messaged me. She said I was being cold, cruel, and heartless. That if the abuse allegations were true, I should show more compassion. That by denying her mother more money, I was re-traumatizing them both. And honestly, I was torn. Because if what Tara said about my father was true, then I understand the pain, the rage, the lifelong trauma. But using that trauma to shame, manipulate, and guilt me into financial support, after receiving money already, feels incredibly wrong. It feels like they're exploiting a tragedy, my dad's death, and my vulnerability, grief, and postpartum recovery, to get what they want. That doesn't feel like justice. That feels like cruelty. So here I am, sitting with all this ugliness, trying to heal from both childbirth and betrayal. And I have to ask, am I the a-hole for refusing to give my ex-stepmom more money, for cutting her off completely, and for not publicly validating her and her daughter's version of events?